This week on the TT Show, we have an overview of the GeForce RTX 4070 Ti Super review, an overview of the AMD Radeon RX 7600 XT review. Mark Zuckerberg bets big on AI with $10 billion headed towards NVIDIA. Apple's Vision Pro sells out in a weekend. Feelbelt brings audio to your skin. And Seagate launches the world's largest hard drive at a very reasonable price. Let's get into it. Okay, welcome back to the TT Show. My name is Jak Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
How is the GPU madness going, my friend?
It's still going. So I don't know what's happening in the world, really.
You're in a hole, mate.
All I know is what's happening in the world of like 3D Mark and Assassin's Creed and just numbers, 1% lows, average frame rates. Temperatures.
Yeah, you're basically a Google spreadsheet at this point.
Yeah. So like in the last 4 days, let's just say, I benchmarked 7 GPUs.
Oh my god! Across how many titles and resolutions?
15 games, 3 resolutions.
That is a slog. For those that don't know, and most people won't know, when you're benchmarking that many games at that many resolutions, it drives you mad, especially if you're getting anomalies coming up. Did you have many anomalies?
There was a few, yeah. So there has been some issues with the. So we'll jump into it. So this is like unprecedented. Well, I mean, like this is probably one of the busiest months in a few years for like GPU launches. NVIDIA is dropping 3 and AMD is dropping 1. So that's like 4 GPUs. All within the same month, which is pretty intense because usually like, if there's a new lineup, like NVIDIA will launch one and then 1 month later will be like, when the 4090 launched, then it was like a month later, the 4080, and then a month later, the 4070 Ti, and then a couple months later, the 4070, that's the way it works. Whereas this time they're dropping like 3 super refresh GPUs in the space of 3 weeks. So it's like you're compressing 3 months worth of GPU reviews into like 3 weeks.
They're seeing just how much they can break you, Costa.
Yeah,
like
broken.
how it's broken. It's broken.
I'm a shell.
You're a shell of your former self.
Yeah.
You're mostly frame rates and resolutions now.
Yeah. Basically. So the one that's launching this week is the 4070 Ti Super, which is the most convoluted name in GPU history. But the reason why they kind of like have to launch it, it's because like last week when we covered the 4070 Super, which is a great card. Like it was like a big bump over the existing 4070. And so its performance in an OC, like an overclocked model, I tested like the tough gaming overclocked one, pushed it close to the 4070 Ti, which means it's like, well, you got this one GPU that's hundreds of dollars cheaper than the 4070 Ti that's getting close enough, like single digit percentages. So like as soon as you get within 10% of performance, like 7, 8%, 6%, 5%, as soon as you get within that sort of range, you're kind of like in the same sort of like ballpark for a GPU. So like anything within 10%, give or take, is like you would consider like that's sort of like in the same sort of like performance range. And that's where that got. So they kind of like had to do the super. But this seems to be, there's already reviews online. I haven't posted our reviews for like the MSI, like the baseline reference models for the 4070 Ti Super were delayed a little bit because there were some issues with certain models, but the performance for the 4070 Ti Super in some cards isn't quite what people were expecting. So people were expecting this card to kind of like match the 4080 to kind of like give it a huge bump. It's not the case. It's more of like a modest upgrade. But the one review that we have, the first review we posted was for this beast, which is the ROG Strix model. Now, if you've seen an ROG Strix card, it's basically like a full PC on its own. Like it's a full enclosed case.
It looks hilarious next to your head.
Yeah, I know, it's huge, right? It's like 3.15 slot thickness or something like that.
3.15?
It's like a monster. So it's like the size of like a 4090 essentially. But it's like it's over-engineered, right? But this is like an OC model of the new 4070 Ti Super. So it pushes the power limit beyond the 285 watts that NVIDIA specified to basically 315 watts or something like that. And it has like basically a one-click overclock. You know, you just install it, and then it's the OC mode pushes the clock speeds, it pushes the power limit, and in this model, it is actually an impressive GPU. Obviously, this is more expensive than other 4070 Ti Supers, but like you're looking at a 15-16% boost to 4K gaming performance, and it's got 16 gigs of VRAM compared to the 12 gig of the 4070 Ti vanilla. So you got that extra VRAM, so it's more of a 4K card, which is good, which is basically what it needed to be. Yeah. Because the 4070 Super still got 12 gig of VRAM, and its biggest improvement was to 4K gaming. But that's kind of like it's a entry level 4K gaming card, you would say. Yeah. Because you can push, ultra settings and high settings at 60 FPS and higher, whereas this one you can just about hit triple digits comfortably, like 100
so
FPS, 4K.
Sitting around the 90s.
Yeah, essentially, like with ultra settings in games. Which is nuts because 4K gaming is kind of like, which is good because it's a high end GPU, so it kind of has to be a 4K gaming GPU.
Yeah, so that extra VRAM showed its legs.
Yes, definitely when it comes to 4K. Now it is about 5% faster than the non-overclocked 4070 Ti Supers that I test at 4K, which is actually pretty good for an OC model. So you're looking at a decent bump. Like it's enough to, that sort of thing. It's like it's enough to go from 90 to 95 FPS or whatever. So it's like it's a notable little bump, which pushes it closer to the. It actually does push its performance closer to like the 4080 vanilla, like the Founders Edition reference model in terms of performance. And next week we're going to get the 4080 Super, which will be the final GPU review for a while. I mean, launch for a little while, hopefully.
Thank God.
And we'll see how that goes. But it's kind of like the middle GPU in this new refresh. Yeah. And the thing is that like 1080p performance is basically the same as what you'll find with the 4070 Ti. Like it's not much of an improvement in most games. That's because it's now at a point that it, like when you get to that sort of level, you're looking at, bottlenecks. Like there's certain games like, older titles and things like that where like the performance of this card, the 4070, the 4080 and the 4090 is essentially the same at 1080p because, you push like
you've hit the ceiling on the game engine. The ceiling.
Yeah. So like, like that doesn't mean they're all the same. It means that like the 4080 will be running at 20%.
yeah, essentially. Like when I play Apex Legends.
Yeah, the fans won't even turn on.
Yeah, you can't even get, and I was testing a 1080p 360 hertz. It was an Agon monitor.
Yep.
And the game caps out at 300 FPS. So I couldn't even feel the full 360 hertz. So I had to move on to like Overwatch and something, or it was Overwatch, Counter-Strike.
Yeah, like those are the only games where like at 1080p that you can tap into more of these GPUs because like they have like frame rates that can actually push 500, 600 or whatever it is. So yeah, like in those sort of games, yeah. But it's not a 1080p card by any stretch. Even at 4040p, it runs into bottlenecks now. So like this is kind of like, yeah, so this is sort of like in the same sort of league as the 4080 and the 4090. But obviously the 4090 is,
Legions.
Still way ahead in terms of performance. And that's always going to be the case. And the 4080 is notably ahead in performance in some titles. But it gets close in a lot. So I actually don't think it's as impressive as the 4070 Super. Because of the price. I think like to make this exciting, is if NVIDIA said, okay, now you've got 16 gigs of VRAM, but we're also dropping the price down to, like $750 instead of $799 or something like that.
Okay.
Just to make it so, because like the 4070 Super is like $599 US, and this is $799 US, which is like an extra 30% whatever markup or whatever it is.
Yeah,
terms
for
of price,
5% more performance.
for about like 15% more performance compared to that card. So you're getting like you're paying 30% more for 15% more performance. But when you get to the high end, it's diminishing returns because at that point you're just paying for like the ultra high end models, and they're never the cost effective ones. You know what I mean? They're the ones that cost NVIDIA and AMD big money to actually make because you fully unlock GPUs, you've got more VRAM, you got all these high quality components. So they're never going to be like as cost effective as like entry level cards or mainstream cards in terms of trying to hit that price and performance. That's where price and performance sort of like is a bigger factor than the high end. But it would have been nice to have seen, because then you just want to see some sort of like shake up to say like, oh wow, this is like great, like excellent value too. Like they've increased the value.
Yeah, extremely competitive, not only on the performance side, but also the price.
Yeah, and the thing is that, especially like this model, so like AMD's like 7900 XT, not the XTX, but the XT, which is their second top of the line GPU, which launched for 900 and then most recently has been available for like 800 in most cases, in most places. So that has like 20 gigs of VRAM, and with taking ray tracing out of the picture, is like consistently better for 4K gaming than the 4070 Ti was. And so the launch of this is kind of like an answer to that as well, because this is now more performative, especially this overclocked model is faster than the 7900 XT. And ahead of the launch of this GPU, AMD dropped the price of the 7900 XT to $749 USD or lower, and they said it's like a temporary price drop just for the quarter, which is weird. They should just make it permanent, but it actually makes that GPU like better value. And when it happened, like models were being sold for like $710 over on Newegg, which is good for like a 4K gaming card, because that's a 4K gaming card just like this one. So the only reason why I'm talking about price is because of AMD's price drop, and it makes you go, oh, okay, yeah. So this is at the same price point. This is better value because it's faster. It just goes without saying. And you've got NVIDIA's DLSS, frame generation, reflex, AV1 encoding. Like all the content creation and other bells and whistles that you pay a premium for because they're the best versions of those technologies. It just goes without saying.
So that warrants, I mean, if you are purchasing this card, you probably are dabbling a little bit into those kind of technologies, or you want to take advantage of them, or you just want to have them in your back pocket. So maybe paying that extra money is worth it.
And
it's
like
not
at this
just
price,
performance. It's also kind of like the bells and whistles that come with it.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that like at 4K, like DLSS is something you enable anyway. Like
Absolutely.
Even on a 4090, right? Doesn't matter, because at 4K, the DLSS quality mode is as good as native, and in some case better, looks better. That's a fact, even though, you're talking about AI upscaling. And there are like, certain issues with ghosting in some games. Like, it's not perfect, but
it's there.
It's there, and it's free performance.
Yeah.
And at 4K, you kind of... It actually makes the card more efficient, games run faster. So like, at 4K with DLSS, this is like an absolute monster. It's like triple digits. Like if it's 4K with DLSS, in most cases, you're getting like an extra 20% performance. So that 90 FPS becomes 120. That's just the way it is. And
it's
that's
so cool to see the... Now I want to try and make sure I get this right. But the 7 series, like usually that's the mid-range card.
Yeah, now it's high end.
And now it's bleeding into the 4K, even to the point where you're sitting here saying that you can hit triple digits. It's like, I remember the 2070 or the 1070, and they were just like high-end 1080p cards and then getting into 1440p.
Yeah, like entry level.
Yeah. And now we're at the stage two generations later where we're talking 4K on the 4070 Super. It's like what the 5000 series. Like what's going to happen on the 5000 series?
Yeah.
Are we? Is the whole stack's going to move up closer to
I don't
4K?
know. Like I think like it'll kind of like level out at this point because I don't see it pushing because like there's a limit to what you can charge and what you can like how many high-end cards and stuff because like the goalposts have changed for like GPUs in terms of like pricing for high-end, mid-range and low-end. Like there's huge gaps between them now. And I think the 50 series, but the thing is like the 50 series is going to be interesting because like a 5070 would potentially be as performative as a 4090.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, that should be similar performance.
And because like the 4070 Super is technically faster than a 3090.
3090, yeah.
Right? It matches it in most games, right? And the 3090 is still like a beast of a card. So that's what like if they can get that, that's going to be insane. Like I don't know how they do that. But like
and also the Steam charts are moving. Like if we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, is gamers are currently in transition between 1080p and 1440p, and every day there is more 1440p monitors being adopted. But 4K, that is still, and I'm just off the top of my head, less than 5% of gamers are running 4K.
And it's because to run 4K natively in games, it just requires, it's just so many more pixels, like the performance drop off. Like let's say like you get like a GPU like the 4060 or like the 4070. Like what happens is that like if you run it at 1080p, it's like you're tapping into the for a game that taps into the GPU's power. Like there's no bottlenecks. You hit that impressive level of performance. Right, let's say 150 FPS. Then you jump to 1440p and you lose 40% of that performance right off the bat just because you're having to do so much. The GPU's tax so much more. You go okay, and then you jump to 4K. Then you lose another 40 to 50% because that jump from 1440p to 4K requires so much more and memory speed as well, and then like extra things like go into it, and it just really taxes the GPU.
Yeah.
So then you go from like 150 to like 80 and then down to like in the 30s.
Yeah, 1080p, 4K, and this is purely just off resolution. We're not talking like memory speeds or anything like that. Is 4K is 4 times...
8 times the pixel count.
8 times the pixel count. So that means you need just on resolution, 8 times the performance if you're running a 1080p monitor. So like
that's right. That's why. Yeah, that's why it's so difficult. Like people, like GPUs all struggle at 4K because 1080p. Yeah, that's right. It's 8 times. Basically, your GPU's working 8 times harder to render at 4K than it would at 1080p.
And that's not without talking about like the memory speeds and like the VRAM, like as we were talking before the show, and stuff like that. Like, you might have a entry level 4K card, but if you're lacking on the VRAM front, like you're gonna hit a bottleneck. Like just because 4K is so demanding in gaming. So this the NVIDIA's next gen GPUs, it's going to be interesting because if they don't make them cheaper, I suppose, well, 4K monitors are becoming cheaper.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, but also as well, like, how we like last couple of episodes, how we've gone through like the millions of OLED ultrawides that are being announced at CES, right? So like this year, like there's going to be so many people that go ultra-wide and go OLED or high refresh rate 1440p, right? So like, 240 hertz, 1440p. See now this card, the 4070 Ti Super, like, it's a great 4K card, but ultra-wide is in between 1440p and 4K.
Yes,
so it sits in the middle.
Even better ultra-wide.
Yeah, so you're going to get triple digits for an ultra-wide. You're going to get...
That's what you want.
In like a Overwatch or whatever, you're going to hit that 200 FPS at 1440p.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe they are. Maybe the NVIDIA and AMD are, pardon me, looking at the adoption for ultrawide and trying to, I don't know, navigate both the entry level 4K world, but also accommodate for ultra wide and really high refresh rate 1440p.
Yeah. I think the next generation kind of has to like move on from 1080p.
Oh, you got to leave it in the... I mean, who's running it? I mean, most people.
Yeah, I know. It's the fastest growing resolution. But also, like, if you look at like the 5060, right? I think the 5060 needs to say that, yeah, it's a beast at 1080p, of course. But it's also good for 1440p. But the thing that always gets forgotten when it comes to GPU reviews and I guess the perception out there when it comes to GPU reviews is that, like, I've seen people say that, you know, complaining about modern GPUs and prices is that, like, oh, like, you know, that the 1060 was a 1080p card in 2016 and now the 4060 is a 1080p card in 2023. So what gives? And games look
way better.
Way better.
What are we talking about, Kosta? Who is saying this? Give me their names. Give me their names.
This is the perception, though. Like, you know.
I hear what you say. I hear what you say. But
like, there's an argument. Yeah, like, it's different now. So like even though we talk about like resolution, but at the same time, like, this games get way more involved.
Yeah,
but I think the 50
just
series...
look at the size of games, and I'm talking about like the storage required for them. Like, you talk about that in 2016, no one was like, yeah, Call of Duty was still big. That game's always been big, but then they, like, most games weren't 120 gigabytes back then. Like, we were talking maybe like 60, 50 gig or something like that.
Oh, like 30, 40. Like, remember like when games started being like 30, 40 gig and you're like, oh shit, this is huge.
This is bullshit.
Because they all used to fit on, like back in the day on DVDs, right? So they every game was basically 8 to 10 gig once it was uncompressed, right? Every single game. So you had like a terabyte drive and you're like, that's like hundreds of games or whatever it is, because like every game is like 8 to 10 gig. And then the new consoles come and then the new games come to PC and then it's like 30, 40 gig. You're like, so now this hard drive that I had can only store a fraction of the games. And then Call of Duty, whatever comes out and you're like, guess what? It's 150 gig if you want to install the multiplayer and the campaign. And you're like, what? 100 and what now?
You're saying 25% of my console is this game?
Yeah, I know. Like 1 terabyte Xbox or PS5 and basically 15% of the storage is relegated to Call of Duty.
Yeah, and then you got the whole influx of portable SSDs designed for console storage as well.
Except you can't really, because use them, you have to use the fast SSDs on the PS5s and Xbox. So that's what has made like, because like back in the day, because when that happened, like on the Xbox One and PS4, you could just connect like a cheap 4 terabyte SSD, like, you know, just USB drive. And granted, those are like super slow. Like, you can't go back to that. Like, trying to play a game on PS4 now is like an exercise in how much patience do you have. Like, a game that takes like 2 minutes to load versus 3 seconds. It's like the difference is not even generational. It's like from a different universe, right? Like,
you're benchmarking your patience.
Exactly.
You don't need that right now, Kosta. You've done enough. No, this is this next generation is going to be interesting. I want to see what I really do hope, and I want this for just gamers in general, to move off of 1080p and move to 1440p, because
the pixel density is
so good.
Noticeable.
It's so good, and if you can do that and you're listening to this, do it. Pick up one of these new 4070 super cards and you will be completely fine, or unless you have a more specific, better recommendation.
No, I think the 4070 super, if you can get it for, you know, not too at the actual MSRP or not too much more, is probably the best value brand new GPU from NVIDIA.
Yeah, and
because
also
yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to recommend people the Ultrawide. If you have been thinking about ultra-wide gaming. 21:9 aspect ratio. More and more games every day, especially new launchers, are adopting this aspect ratio, which is really nice because then you've got native. I don't like stretched on the side. If any listeners have read any of my reviews, I tear apart games that have stretched aspect ratios. I think it's weak on the developer front, especially when ultra-wide is here to stay. I don't think you have any excuse as a developer. Ubisoft, I'm looking at you directly to not support ultra-wide, especially with these graphics cards coming out that dominate at that aspect ratio and resolution.
The 4070 Super and the new TI Super are great for ultra-wide.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like a good sweet spot, I think.
Yeah.
Because
so
going to 4K is just too taxing, and ultra-wide is something that it's like, okay, it's not as taxing, so more GPUs are now capable. And because the 4070 Super is like its biggest bump is kind of like for ultra-wide res. So like, the biggest, like it's better at 1440p compared to the 4070 for the same price, but it's even better when you just bump that resolution just that bit more to ultra-wide. So that's why it makes it like probably the best value card.
Yeah. So if you think about making that jump, I've used 5 or 6 ultra wides. I've used 32:9s, and my most recent review on I think it's the ASUS. ASUS PG49WCD is that absolutely hilariously large monitor.
Dude.
I don't recommend that one per se if you're strictly gaming, because there is about 4 games that support that weird aspect ratio. It is a very cool, unique monitor. I would recommend it for someone that is, I don't know, has a cockpit, maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
Full setup.
Like outside of like Flight Simulator and like F1 and like Forza.
Yeah.
Not much. I don't see the value. Because
Yes.
when you look at like cinematic games, or like games that support it, like like Ratchet and Clank, I think was one that I've seen running on one of those. I think that the field of view just becomes too big.
Yeah, it's just,
like it actually hurts. Like it doesn't feel as immersive as 21:9. Weirdly.
Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, I would steer you towards if you're a gamer thinking of like maybe I do want an ultra wide monitor. I've been using 16:9 this entire time, and ultra wides look pretty cool. 21:9, a lot of games have that native support for that. And also, if you flex between, like if you're a uni student or you do a little bit of word processing or something like that, ultra wide is
productivity is
easily my favorite, because you can have three tabs side by side next to each other, and it's just mint. Is that about all you had on the GPU stuff?
Speaking of changing things up with like resolutions and stuff, there's the other GPU that launched this week, which is this one here. This is AMD's Radeon 7600 XT, and this is the Sapphire Pulse model. And basically, the big story here is that this is a mainstream GPU with 16 gigs of VRAM.
That's nice.
Now it's on the same sort of like 128-bit bus speed, which is slower than what you find on like the high-end sort of GPUs in terms of like memory bandwidth. But it's definitely worth highlighting and worth celebrating that a GPU, a mainstream GPU is now from AMD has 16 gigs of VRAM. And like there is a price increase compared to the 7600, which is essentially covering the VRAM, because the rest of the specs are exactly the same as the 7600, which makes it an exciting but also a little bit underwhelming launch. It has faster clock speeds. So in games where VRAM 16 gig versus 8 gig at 1080p is not an issue, and that's most games. The performance uplift is negligible.
Yeah.
And which means that on average, the performance uplift is like single digit percentage compared to the 7600. which is not. It's just like not that exciting, but there are a few examples. So like Doom Eternal at 1440p is 30% faster on this card than it is on the 7600 8 gig. Forza Horizon 5 is like 20 or close to 20% faster. So there's a couple of games where like the VRAM. So so what so I guess like the good thing about it is that it's kind of like future proofed in a way. So like if you were to replace like an old GPU with another mainstream 1080p card and you choose this one which has 16 gigs of VRAM, which means you probably won't have any issues with games launching this year being able to run fine. You know what I mean? Like or some sort of game that really pushes textures and detail that requires a lot of VRAM.
Yeah.
So you won't have to turn things down to medium or low settings just to be able to stay within, to be able to get it, just to be able to run without, running out of memory, which is good. So there's just future proofing. But I think that, the problem is that like the reason why there aren't 16 gig cards at this sort of price range, this is $329 US, is because it costs money. Like to add 1 gig of or 2 gigs of extra RAM, like they come in whatever 2 gig little chips. Yeah. Each one's going to cost AMD $20 or $10 or $5, whatever it is. Like it just that's what it's going to cost them. So to add like an extra 8 gig of RAM is going to cost them like $40, $50 or whatever the case is. And it seems that this is, the 7600 is $269 and it's a good 1080p. It's like an entry-level mainstream card and it's priced cheaper than the 4060. It doesn't hit that level of performance on average as the 4060, but it's cheaper and it's close enough that it's a decent card. Whereas this is like $60 more for 8 gigs of VRAM, and in most cases it's the exact same performance, but there is examples like Doom Eternal where it's notably faster, Forza, and there'll be many more like Last of Us Part 1 remaster PC. There is a number of titles where it is faster because of the VRAM, which makes it kind of like a very entry level 1440p card if you turn down settings, because the performance just isn't at, it's not even at the 4060 Ti levels or nowhere near 4070 levels.
Do you feel like AMD could have done a little bit more with this card? You sound slightly
I think
disappointed
that it should just be
about it.
That it should be cheaper. Like maybe they should have just eat some of the costs and just make it like $299, like under $300. Like grab headlines to say that.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Here's like, or even just call it the 7600 16 gig version. Like adding the XT kind of implies that it's a more powerful card.
That's what usually I thought going into this. I thought we were going to get a really small, powerful card, but now you're telling me that it's not.
So basically, it turns out that the 7600 has that Navi 33 chip fully unlocked already, and when you get to the 7700, you've got the new chiplet design that's more expensive from AMD. So like the 7600 was always meant to be cost effective. The problem with this is that you've got the exact same number of, like AMD's hardware specs are stream processor count, compute units, array accelerators, like those, the things the hardware make up. It's exactly the same. So like, whereas that has, 56 or 48 or 32 of X, this has got 32 of X. So like usually if you go to XT, you're going to get like 10% more. So like if you look at the 4070 Super, that's got 20% more CUDA cores than the 4070, which means you're going to get more performance, right? The 4070 Ti has like more CUDA cores. Like, you look traditionally at the 6600, the previous gen 6600 compared to the 6600 XT, and you got more compute units. And so like you got like, that's how you get like double digit, you want 10% at least performance increase.
Yeah,
on
at
average,
least.
Right? When you go up that little more expensive version. And that's not really the case here because it's the exact same GPU. It's got faster clocks, so you are getting, compared to like the reference 7600, a couple of frames extra in every game, but it's not really noticeable.
Within
if you're
5%.
If you're going from 96 FPS to 99 FPS, are you going to notice the difference? No. Yes, it's 3% faster, but
it's like,
that's why
it's negligible.
So I still like it because of the 16 gig, because there are examples where it's faster, but it's not that exciting. But it is good value still because of the 16 gig, and that's good for like content creation. So like, let's say you're editing, like AMD has decent video encoders now. They've updated them with RDNA 3. So like, if you're editing like 4K video, you can do it on this card because you got 16 gigs of video memory. So you can do more with this, or like Blender or something, like you can do more with this GPU than you could on an 8 gig card. And for the price range, it's the kind of like the only GPU outside of Intel's top end Arc that has 16 gigs of VRAM.
Oh.
Like to get a 16 gig card, you have to go double the price for an NVIDIA, or more than double for an NVIDIA GPU, or you have to go like basically double the price again, or for the 7800 XT to get 16 gigs of VRAM.
So it's very niche card.
It's a very interesting thing. And also as well, like this could be like an AI play as well. Because if you're looking at generative AI, and this being the year of AI PCs, VRAM does come into it. So you could be looking at people running generative AI models locally that are just, people just like buying these to do basic
just
AI
home stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like more affordable. But yeah, like that covers the GPUs.
Yeah. Well, speaking of generative AI, we should talk about what Mark Zuckerberg posted to his Instagram account. So this is in the same lane as GPUs, generative AI, and all of that stuff. And as you were saying, this is the year of AI PCs. But Mr. Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook and current CEO of Meta, has taken to his Instagram with let's just say some very tired eyes. He might need some sleep or a Barocca
for him. So do I.
So he took to his Instagram with a video basically outlining Meta's big bet on developing an open source artificial general intelligence. And if you've heard about AI, you've likely also heard of AGI, which stands for Artificial General Intelligence. And probably the easiest way to differentiate the two is AGI would be an AI that has human level intelligence. It's comparable to a human, which is, depending on which researcher you ask, either impossible or within 5 years. So it's all over.
The way like AI works is that most people don't really understand, and nor that they should, is that it's not intelligence the way most humans like view intelligence, right? It is like rules and things like that. So it's like basic, like like an AI. Like AI is like most AI is like dumb. Is pretty dumb, right? Like like the very first versions of AI is that like this like little robot or little car can navigate around this room. All it means is that there's a detection that says, okay, if I'm close to a wall, slow down and then turn right. And if there's nothing to the right, I can turn right. Like it has like, it's just basically if else, like, and it's all just like very basic rules. That's what defines.
They're bowling with the bumpers on.
Yeah. But obviously generative AI and what's happening now is very, very different because you've got that happening at a level that is so fast and so quickly that eventually, it'll have enough of that information to be at that human level is what they're saying.
Yeah, and a part of reaching that, according to Zuckerberg, is purchasing an astonishing 350,000 NVIDIA H100 AI GPUs. Each are approximately $30,000 each, which ends up being a total in just H100 GPUs, $10.5 billion.
That's one sale.
In one. And then Zuckerberg said that eventually, what will be powering this open source AGI is 600,000 H100 equivalent of compute power, which is counting all the other GPUs, such as like, you know, the AMD cards and, you know, everything else that they have plugged into this AI. Now, what I wanted to talk about was that is a lot of GPUs, but also the fact that they want to open source the AGI. Now, some researchers, Dame Wendy Hall, a computer scientist at the University of Southampton in England, said it's so irresponsible for the company to suggest, end quote, open sourcing the AI, because if it was to get into the wrong hands, it could result in a great deal of harm. I'm usually for open sourcing stuff, but I mean, I've seen so many reports of so many different researchers saying AGI could genuinely be really bad for society. I can't really think of, like, there's nothing that immediately pops into my head about the dangers of it besides misinformation and also generative AI scraping the internet and then collecting content that it has generated, because then it ends up being this loop of poor information. And I've done stories on researchers that have fed generative AI, generated AI content, and it ends up spinning the AI into just chaos.
Yeah, like it's very easy to detect and for it to mess up currently. And like there's examples I was reading the other day of like multiple generative AI like content creation thingos now scrambling to hire writers to go through all this AI content to have like AI editors to be able to basically edit. So all they're doing is just like, instead of being hired as copywriters, they're being hired as copy editors for AI generated content.
Yeah, it's going to be a strange thing. And like I said, I'm mostly for open sourcing basically any software. Usually it ends up being way better. We use OBS to record this podcast, and that's open source. And like, if you have a problem or you want to use OBS in a weird way, post to the forums and give them a few months and there's a fix that comes out. That's the beauty of open sourcing stuff. I don't know how that's going to work with AI though.
But like, I can see where the danger is, right? Like if you're looking at a open source AGI that could be deployed by any corporation or government body or military in the world to run systems, to run and make decisions.
Yeah,
without oversight, without any sort of international, like body like the UN, like a governing body or something like that. Like, that's the danger, because if you don't have oversight to something that you technically don't have full control over. Let's say you hand over the keys to an AGI to manage all nuclear reactors. Right? And there's an issue with one. This is just hypothetical. There's an issue with one, so it decides to shut down everything in the country as a safety measure, right? And this is not the thing causing like intentional harm. It's like it's trying to protect everyone. So it's like, no, all power's off. It's just we found this one error and we don't understand what the problem is. We're going to shut down everything, and then you just cause economic chaos. Yeah, because like an unintended system is like something that you didn't expect. Like that's the thing, is like if you don't know what the outcome is, if you don't have control over the outcome, then it's potentially dangerous. And when you're talking about like software or open source thingos, it's open source, but it doesn't do anything on its own. You mold it, you run it, you control it.
Yeah, it could really be. It's just a matter of there isn't regulatory guidelines. Like I said, bowling with the bumpers on. There is no bumpers right now in terms of AI. Like, it is the wild, wild west. AI is every day there's a new GPT that has been released that is ripping off someone else's work, generating, and people are making money off of it. You can even argue OpenAI is doing that with ChatGPT. None of the content that is within ChatGPT's large language model is original content. It is everyone else's content.
Yeah, it goes back to that whole thing about how AI is very, if you break it down to the earliest components of like the earliest versions of AI, like, you know, it's like very rule-based. It's like, it's an approximation of intelligence. So these large language models can scrape information at an insane speed, but it's just, and it is learning by doing that. But at the same time, it's just a rule set that's just, it's just basically taking what is already out there. Like, it's not really generating things from
it's not completely original content.
No.
And then you get into the argument of the first analogy that pops into my head is the boat analogy, where you love, like, say, the Black Pearl, right? But the Black Pearl from Pirates of the Caribbean. But the Black Pearl, you know, he gets hit with a cannonball or something like that, and then he's wood replaced. And then you replace that wood. And then over 20 years, the whole ship has been replaced. Is it still the Black Pearl?
Yeah, I know that analogy. Yeah.
You know
like
what I
if
mean?
You replace every component.
Yeah. Every component. Is it still what it was originally, or is it something new? The same thing is happening with the AI. They're just they're putting different bits of information in to form something that they say is new.
That is new. Yeah. I agree.
It's not.
Like, I agree with that as well, because it's kind of like, this is a tangent, but because like I do music production, it's kind of like remixing, right?
Yeah.
Like, remixing is an art form. Like, let's say, like, you know, a good remix that a producer makes of a track, it's like reinterpreting something. Like, yeah, it's using samples. Like, it's like with the music, like using samples from this or that to make something new. Like, I've done it heaps of times. Like, it's not entirely new, but it is new. Like, it is not, like, it is something that has been created. So I think, like, that argument for AI holds water, but at the same time, where it gets like murky for like art is that there really is no creativity coming from the AI. It is like, if you just say, show me a a mug sitting on a desk in the style of Pablo Picasso. So what it's going to do is use all the information it knows about Pablo Picasso's art style, or if you say in like this Art Deco, in this sort of like, you know, it's going to take all that millions of images that it's scraped, and it's just going to say, okay, that in this style, and we're just going to copy that style.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, it's almost like, is it like, it feels like plagiarism in a way.
Yeah, and
but then
also
it's such a grey area.
Be a devil's advocate to my own argument. Everyone is standing on the shoulders of people that have passed away, that have been developing knowledge from previous generations. So we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and also saying at the same time, everyone is generating their own original content because they're humans. It's like, well, how much of your own thoughts are your own thoughts, or are they other people's thoughts combined with, you know, Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein and Jordan Peterson, and it's like, these are all,
you don't even know where half of it is. Half of it's subconscious, right? Like, you heard something years ago and that informs your opinion. Yeah,
that's essentially what the AI is doing. You know what I mean? Like, that's we're doing the same thing, but in real life, but we think it's okay because we're human.
Yeah.
But now we see something like an AI do it instantaneously. We're like, that's bullshit. Nah, it's not real. Anyway, that's a bit of AI talk. It is the wild, wild west. The biggest takeaway from this story, I suppose, about Mark Zuckerberg is the absurd amount of GPUs that he's buying to
definitely
to fuel this AGI, and also the fact that there is hardly any regulatory, if none at all, guidelines put in place for technology such as this, and AI is moving too fast for regulators to come in. So yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see, and hopefully Skynet doesn't come out. What else do we have on the menu, Kosta?
Oh, there's quite a bit. Well, you've got way more stuff we can talk about. Do you want to go? Do you want to go into the Vision Pro? Yeah.
Okay, so last it was January, the second week of January. Pre-orders opened for Apple's Vision Pro mixed reality headset, and now, according to analysts, Ming-Chi Kuo, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Very established analyst, has been quoted throughout multiple publications. Has said that Apple has sold anywhere between 160,000 and 180,000 Vision Pro units just over the weekend, like in between that time. Each is priced at $34.99, which is an astonishing price tag.
Yeah, $4,000. Yeah, like that's the catch, right? Because this is not like a MetaQuest.
No, this is
for a few $100.
You can't even compare this headset to the MetaQuest. It doesn't have controllers. Its UI is completely different. I was listening to Marcus Brownlee. What was that? Sorry.
Like, who is it for?
That's the question. Really, is the headset's entertainment capabilities as good as what Apple showed during its presentation, where you can sit back and project a 4K screen and watch a movie, I don't know, on the moon? If that is the case, maybe more entertainment purposes. I was listening to Marcus Brownlee talk about this on the Waveform podcast, which is a fantastic tech podcast. And he has used it a few times, and some of the other staff members have used it. And some of the capabilities in it are just astonishing. And one of them was like, apparently there's a keyboard that comes up. So if you wanted to type into, like, I don't know, New York Times or something like that, you go like this virtually. But that's just one option of typing. You can also turn on eye tracking, and then you look at the individual keys and it will type. So, and every time you look at a key, you touch your fingers like this. I'm touching for just the audio listeners out there, I'm touching my thumb and my pointer, my index finger.
So the PSVR 2 has eye tracking, and it's actually pretty impressive. Like, eye tracking works really well for that. So like the way that they use that is a little bit different, because like, because you have to render at like, 100 hertz or 120 hertz for VR, so you don't get a headache. You can't have games running at like 60 FPS. They need to be like 120.
Yep.
So the way that they use it on the PSVR 2, looking at like the Horizon game in VR, which is actually pretty impressive, is that like based on your eye tracking, like where you're looking, that's where you get like the most detail. And so like, like when you play a game, there's like a level of detail, like, distant objects are like not as detailed, but when you get close, distance. You see the draw distance, and stuff like that. So like where you're looking is like where you see like it's where it starts rendering like higher quality to save on performance based on your eye tracking. It's actually pretty impressive. Yeah,
it's I'm not exactly sure who this is exactly for, because again, the price, you can't even compare it to any of the other VR or mixed reality headsets on the market, because it's not
for
even
gaming, is it?
What was that? Sorry?
It's not for gaming.
I don't think so. I think there's entertainment experiences, like Disney is working with Apple on some Star Wars content and some other Disney owned IP to go into the headset. That's what I heard through the Waveform podcast. Yeah, look, this is 160,000 to 180,000 Vision Pro units is a lot. The company only reportedly has between 60,000 and 80,000 units in stock at launch on February 2. So The demand for the Vision Pro has resulted in delayed shipping times. We're now looking at anywhere between 5 and 7 weeks for people to receive their order, and in-store pickups will also be unavailable.
I was about to say, like, is this like a soft launch that like Apple have been, this has been like on the cards, talked about for like years, right? That they're making this mixed reality thing. Like, do you think it seems like they're just launching it now, even like just to get it out there because they've spent so much on R&D, even though like, mixed reality headsets are still unproven and there's no real like definitive use case for this sort of technology to be like a must-have. Like there's no, like, like an iPad or an iPhone or a MacBook Pro. You look at these devices and they're like essential life. If you're working,
a
you're
creator,
studying, or a creator, these are essential tools, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is like an Apple product that like maybe they thought that they would reach that point where it becomes at that level, but it's not at that level. And to me, it seems like it's just get it out there because VR headsets and mixed reality headsets are still being released. Like, new Meta Quests and now this, and we may eventually get like a new VR headset from Valve and Steam for Steam VR, but like it's not like it hasn't hit that sort of like inflection point of being essential.
Yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment. This is the weirdest Apple product launch I've seen in my time reporting because there hasn't been that much hype for it in terms of marketing. Like we had that massive reveal at the most recent Apple event, if I'm remembering correctly, and that was mind-blowing. But a lot of that, all of that, was pre-recorded footage. There hasn't been not a single image or video of an Apple employee wearing the headset at all.
Okay.
Like there's usually you see more marketing come out about like the new iPhone. Here's like, I saw a video from Apple. It was a guy walking around I think it was a statue, and he was just showing how the image stabilization and video stabilization works on the new Pro because of the camera lens. This is a slight tangent. Is suspended between it's got like tiny little wires. I imagine it kind of like one of those jumping, those trampolines.
Those trampoline things. Yeah. You're in the harness.
Yeah, you're in a harness. That's essentially where
you're always dead center. Yep.
Yeah, the lens is. So yeah, that was a demonstration of what you will get with the Pro versions of the iPhone 15. We haven't seen much stuff with the Vision Pro, and then
I think it's kind of like, I think that kind of reinforces the idea that it's like a soft launch, right? It's like them getting it out there now and just like, sure, it can do all these things, but they're not 100% behind this being like something that even the price point, it's like, well, they must know like this is just a niche thing.
It is for sure. So the same analyst said that Apple will be able to reach 500,000 units in 2024, but after those orders are filled, the Vision Pro demand will begin to taper off. Now that ties into the next point of rumors are pointing towards Apple working on a much cheaper and less powerful Vision Pro headset, and this one would feature an iPhone SoC rather than a Mac one. So it'll be a much more scaled down chip, have a reduction in display quality, and with all that, you can safely assume that the price will be significantly reduced. But also my concern is if they are going to make a cheaper one, the battery for the $34.99 version is only 2.5 hours. I can't even watch my favorite movie of all time on this headset. Like if I owned an Apple Vision Pro and I was on a plane, I can't watch any Lord of the Rings movie. None. Extended. I'm not messing around. I'm not going to watch the theatrical cut, Kosta. I'm not messing around. But I literally can't do that. So if they're going to cut down on the $34.99 Vision Pro, and then they just released the Vision. I'm guessing that's what it's going to be called because, you know,
Yeah.
MacBook Pro. I don't know. Usually Apple does that. Then I'm guessing the battery is going to be much less as well. And I'm like, what? We're going to have an hour? Like,
I don't think. Yeah.
Like, what?
Judging by this, I don't think it's even at that point where they're going to mass market this.
It's getting pretty close to launch.
No, but like in terms of like a vision, like, you know, like a model that, like, you know, is still expensive because it's Apple, but it's not $4,000.
Yeah,
expensive.
Yeah, well, in Australia, this is a $5,000 mixed reality headset with a 2.5 hour battery.
Yeah, that battery life is just silly, right?
And one of my biggest attractions to this headset, I loved the browsing on Safari and the voice calls and stuff like that. But I loved the fact that they showcased someone sitting down and be like, I want to watch a movie. And then they just teleported to the moon and then just blew it up so it looked like a cinema. I'm like, what are you showing me right now? I can watch cinema 4K footage in a VR headset on the moon. I want to do that.
That would be cool. Yeah,
I want to do that.
I would do that.
But
like, what's the cost here?
Yeah, $5,000, and you only and I can't even watch Lord of the Rings. So
that's the only way. Like, you can't really watch the theatrical version anymore. Like,
no, you don't.
When's the last time you've seen? Have you watched the theatrical version of Fellowship like since after the extended? I haven't.
Yes.
I've just always been extended.
Yes, I have. I've watched because they don't have the extended on Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, right.
So I was at someone else's house. I'm like, all right, you need them.
So much is cut out. You're like,
yeah.
I need those extended scenes.
You need them. So that's about all we have on the Apple Vision Pro. We'll probably update you next week with because by that time the launch should be not next week, the week after. So not next podcast, not next episode, the episode after that. We'll update you with some. I'm sure there'll be some kind of statements from Apple, probably a new video or something like that. But let's move on to this. Is just something cool that I saw. Oh, sorry, what was that?
I was gonna say, well, no, you go after this. We'll talk about like some game stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up the next gen battery from out of China. This is, I thought, quite interesting. So I don't know how you feel about having a nuclear anything in your pocket, but Beijing startup Bettervolt Technology has designed a prototype device that uses nuclear isotopes along with semiconductors to convert energy into electrical power. And this thing is about the size of a what was it, a 10-cent piece or something like that? Yeah,
and the tagline that you wrote there is that you can get 50 years of charge. 50 years of charge.
50 years.
That's just insane, right? There's no need, at that point, it's not even point putting a number on it, really.
Yeah.
You just say unlimited. Because what's going to happen? Like 51 years rolls around and people are going to be upset. It's like, what are you talking about?
Damn.
It was 50 years ago. Get over
it. Yeah. I'll be 70 and just be like, oh, my iPhone 15.
Hold on a second. This lasted 49 years, not 50.
Yeah. So apparently this battery, according to an article from Science and Technology Daily, works safely between temperatures of 120 centigrade to minus 60, which is, no one's that's fine.
Okay. But what happens when it crosses 120? Are we talking Chernobyl?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. So the official name for it is the BV100. It's only 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters and 5 millimeters thick. It has a maximum output, and here's the bummer, 100 microwatts and 3 volts.
Oh.
So it can't power a phone right now.
Right.
But the company plans to make a 1-watt version next year after it mass produces the 100 microwatt model. The battery technology captures the energy from the nuclear decay of radioactive elements. I don't know.
Now,
this is...
an everlasting battery is Like this is like
Gold.
The dream, right? That's like
Mm-hmm.
the holy grail
Mm-hmm.
for tech. Like that's a game changer at a level that you can't comprehend.
Mm. Now,
So like,
how do you feel about having nuclear in your pocket?
I don't mind it.
I mean, I don't mind it.
You know, I'm already packing heat.
Yeah.
So
Oh, Costa. Stop it, you. The company states on its website the battery could enable devices like smartphones to operate indefinitely without recharging or drones flying without landing. The applications for this, as you were saying, this is the holy grail, are widespread. It's not just smartphones. It's drones. It's military applications. It's even satellites, or I mean, a lot of the space rovers and stuff like that. Like Curiosity is running on a nuclear, is using nuclear energy. It's not a nuclear reactor. I can't exactly remember what type of nuclear energy it's using.
Like it would, obviously it's different to like, it's not like you're having a nuclear power plant in battery size.
Yeah, well, so the difference between, well, this battery specifically, as I said, it captures the energy from nuclear decay of radioactive elements. So the BV100 uses nickel -63 as its radiation source, which has a half-life of about 100 years. So different elements produce a different amount of energy. So if you had, I don't know, I should probably pull up the article just so I'm not bastardizing this. Okay, where is it? Unlike nuclear, it says here, unlike nuclear fission or fusion, nuclear decay is a spontaneous process in which isotopes emit radiation, leading to more stable new atoms. Scientists encapsulate these isotopes, converting the energy emitted into usable electrical power. So different isotopes, different amount of power, so on and so forth.
Jokes aside, I don't know how I feel about holding up like to my ear, like something that has emitting nuclear radiation like that close.
It's being captured. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the nuclear.
Sure.
No, I think there's a general scare when anyone hears nuclear, but overall, it is, I believe, the answer to a lot of the energy problems. Its safety levels now and the regulation that has gone around it it's amazing. Like Japan was just hit with a nuclear with an earthquake and its reactors shut down. There was no fallout. There was no Fukushima 2.0. There was nothing like that. It's safe.
So yes, but there are like, obviously, like it is the most efficient form of energy. But it also has the potential to be disastrous for the planet, or humans.
Catastrophic.
So last year, I can't remember when it was, but I'm not sure. I don't think we covered it because I think it was before TT show was a thing. So Microsoft, because they're like creating all these data centers everywhere. So they're working with this scientists or engineers. They develop what's being developed is portable nuclear power plants.
Portable.
So this is like something that you could deliver with a truck.
What?
And set it up, right? This is like portable nuclear energy.
Wow.
And they're investing in it like lots of money because that would be the most efficient way to run a data center, right?
Yeah.
But this technology is not legal. Like it hasn't been like approved for, like it's still in development and it still needs to go through, regulation and safety, and has to be like given that sort of like level of that it's going to work or that it's going to be fine. Like it's not a done deal. But like by the same thing, like, the same idea of this being able to perpetually charge your phone, because like, a data center, like especially in the age of AI, is pulling in so much power off the grid.
So much.
So Microsoft is paying, like, let's say their electric bill, if you think yours is high, like they're paying like millions of dollars or tens of millions in electricity
every quarter,
like every month or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so like, having a portable nuclear reactor powering each data center.
That's insane.
Basically means that there's an initial cost. Yeah. There's operational costs. Yeah.
Yeah.
But energy costs
down.
virtually like
None.
eliminated.
None.
Yep.
And you'll probably be able to expand the center much easier.
And the whole point of that is that basically the only way you can do that is with nuclear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's just no way you can't set up like wind farms or solar thingos as much like that technology is not at the level where it can generate that amount of energy.
Yeah, it's depressing how far behind solar panels and all of that green energy capturing devices.
It is.
They're so far behind. Okay, that's about all I've got on that. I just thought that was pretty cool. Did you want to go to games?
Yeah, let's talk about some games, and kick it off with the most, I guess, the game that everyone's talking about right now called Palworld. It's available on PC, Steam, in early access, as well as on Xbox consoles. It's actually part of Xbox Game Pass. And it's in early access. So basically, it's currently the most played game on PC and Xbox. And by most played, we're talking about records being broken. I posted a story just a couple of days ago, and that's already redundant. So it's already like out of date. So now Palworld, in terms of all-time peak players. So on Steam, you've got like obviously millions of people play games, right? But there's Steam tracks how many players are playing a game at any given moment. So Palworld has just passed a record. It's surpassed Counter-Strike 2. It's now the number 2 most played game on Steam of all time in terms of peak players. It's behind PUBG now. So it's the second most played game. As we speak, Palworld right now is the most played game on Steam. There's over 1 million people playing the game right now as we speak, which is more than double the Counter-Strike 2 player count.
That's impressive.
So this is unprecedented. Now, you might be saying, like, why this game? How this game? Is it just viral? And part of it is that it's viral. But because the hook here is that Palworld is a survival action RPG, action adventure, and survival game with crafting and, like Ark survival type mechanics where you build bases and stuff. But the world has pals to collect. They're called pals. And they're basically monsters that look like Pokemon. They look very much like Pokemon.
Yeah.
But they also can be equipped with guns. So you can see a screenshot and it's like, it's like a Pokemon with like a massive tank machine gun and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the selling point. But why it's getting a lot of immediate attention, but also as well the fact that it's like a Pokemon style game for PC. And Pokemon is big business, but it's relegated to the Switch and Nintendo stuff. Like it doesn't cross over into any other platform really. So there's a lot of... So obviously, yes, the game is fun. So like apparently Palworld nails the mechanics of like going out to collect pals, taking them back to your base, using them to defend or to build or to do farming or, to go out and then you take them out to battle. Just like in Pokemon, you collect more. There's over 100 to collect. It's a huge world. So, and it can have servers of up to like 30 players. So it's kind of like Ark or another survival game where you can have like your own instanced world with friends and, build and collect, etc., etc. But it's in early access, so it's incomplete. But like the popularity of this is insane. It's 2023's big games, Baldur's Gate and Hogwarts Legacy, like 2 big games. Like this is leaving them in the dust.
So talk to me about the controversy, because I saw some headlines yesterday. I think they were from Games Radar, some other publications. Is Nintendo suing this company or what?
No. So what happened is that immediately... The game it's basically been out for a week or just under a week.
Yeah.
So what somebody has done is mod the game and put the mod online that replaces in-game models with actual Pokemon.
Oh.
And like the transition isn't even that big of a stretch, right? Because the game looks like Pokemon.
Oh, that guy
because it looks like Pokemon, it
violence.
doesn't mean that it's infringing on copyright. But Nintendo has issued a takedown request for that mod, so it's now offline.
Okay.
And so there's people that are speculating, and this is pure speculation, that Nintendo is going to try and legally get this game removed. But this is not just like an unknown Steam. This is also on Xbox, right? And it has to go through Microsoft certification to get on Xbox, and console is a different level. Like, PC games, can be like rip-offs, like, cheap, like, there's certain games on Steam and like that you won't find on consoles, generally speaking. But this is where the controversy is a little bit weird, is that like none of this is substantiated. So there's a feeling out there, or a consensus, that Palworld uses AI, that the way that the team generated models for their pals, which are the stand-in for Pokemon, is by using generative AI to change the art of existing Pokemon and to create their equivalent versions. Now, either they did that, or the developers knowingly took Pokemon models and just changed things around to make them look like, to change them enough so they're different. So they're different to Pokemon.
Yeah, so they're different visually, but they were using the Pokemon assets. Is that kind of?
But there's no evidence of this.
Yeah,
there's no evidence that the game uses AI or the developers used AI. As we're recording this, there is no evidence of that. Like, if that changes, we'll update this. We'll talk about it again.
Yeah, for sure.
But there is, just so it's clear, like there's no evidence that Palworld is using AI to create content or its art. There's no evidence that that they have ripped off Nintendo models or things wholesale either. So the reason why a lot of people are upset is because of this. From what I can see, there's a percentage of people that are upset because of the popularity of the game. There are Nintendo fans, fanboys, like the hardcore. They're upset that this game is supposedly ripping off Pokemon, and yeah, sure, it's inspired by, and it's monsters with guns, but it's also a survival game. It's like we're talking about the AI thing. Like, if you take something and you make it different, like, it is its own new thing.
Yeah.
So now they're vocal, right? They're siding with Nintendo. They want to see Nintendo sue the developers, this indie studio, for this game. They want to see it taken down, and these are just people that have no stake in the game. They don't work for Nintendo, so like, it's like, why do you even care, right?
Yeah.
And then there are like certain developers who are saying that, we think, like, they're like, this is suspect, like, like, how did they make this game with like 100 different creatures? So like, with such a small team, like, maybe they're using AI. This is just speculation. And so, like, because a game developer said that, people just assume that that's fact now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's getting blown out of proportion. But the real story is just the popularity of this thing. The thing is, like, Palworld is huge, right? Like, we'll know like in a month or two whether it has the legs to sustain it. But like, you're talking at a game that's not free to play either. So it's like $30 US or whatever the case is. This indie studio sold like 5-6 million copies now, or whatever it is, in a week, right? So this is like one of the biggest selling games. It's probably going to be one of the biggest selling games of the year.
Oh, for sure. It reminds me of when PUBG came out.
Yeah, and like, what's weird is that, like, yeah, exactly. Like, the thing is, like, yeah, like, it hasn't hit. That's right. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, wow, I remember when PUBG came out, like, it's just everybody was playing it. It's all.
Did you play H1Z1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was golden.
That was.
These games were.
Wasn't that so a mod of.
Yeah. For Armor 3.
Yeah, that's.
I think it was.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then.
It was like Armor 3 that had like all these mods that were just like created like a whole new genre.
Yeah. And then Player Unknown saw that.
Yeah.
And created Player Unknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
And then Epic Games saw PUBG and created Fortnite.
Yeah.
And then we got Apex Legends, so on, so forth.
Yeah, this Palworld, like, the thing is, like, the survival genre is always been popular on PC, right? If you remember, like, Valheim, when that dropped during the lockdown, right? That was huge for a while. And that hit some pretty high numbers too. but and not at this level.
This is big.
This is like insane, right? So like, it's broken the records for like the only game that people have that has been more popular historically on Steam is PUBG, right? So this is more popular than this is like broken records set by Counter-Strike 2, Lost Ark, Dota 2, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, Hogwarts Legacy, Baldur's Gate 3, Apex Legends, Valheim, Call of Duty. Like this is
just Steam though. Like
this just come out.
What do we think it's doing on Games Pass?
Yeah, it's on Game Pass on PC too.
Yeah.
And according to Game Pass, see, Xbox don't release numbers, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the most played games on Xbox and Xbox Game Pass on PC, Palworld is up there.
It would have to be.
It's like it's the most played game. Yeah.
It'd have to be.
It has to be because it's all, yeah. So like, yeah, it's not even exclusive to Steam either. So it's doing gangbusters.
I would probably put it, and this is complete speculation. I've got no data to back up on this. I would say anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million more players on Xbox, on Game Pass.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And that is a big
bare minimum,
jump. But you got to try and you can't go too far. Like I don't think there's more people playing on Game Pass than there is on Steam, but I could be wrong.
No,
I could be wrong.
I don't think so.
So we're actually looking at almost close to 2 million
peak players, yeah. And that was within the last 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
So like it hasn't tapered off yet. Like it's rising. It's now like averaging like 1 million players at any point in a 24-hour period.
That's incredible.
Because the peak concurrent player count on Steam is interesting because like, a game might sell like 20 million copies, right? Or 10 million copies, let's say, on PC.
Yeah.
And its peak players will be like, 500,000, which means that it's a smash hit, right? Or 400,000, 300,000. And that's because like, if you think about a game, right? Like you got every country in the world, you got millions of people players. Nobody's playing the game at the same time all the time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So like Palworld, this also means that people are hooked on the game, right? That the gameplay loop is
good.
What is one of the big reasons, right? So like, like you might play a game for like an hour, and with that, peak player counts will just be lower by if the average play time is an hour as well. So like if you're talking about like a huge peak player count, that also means that people are playing the game for longer in a particular session to be able to get that many players concurrently as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's almost like a proof that the game is fun in a way, that there's enough about the game to hook players for a long time.
I would agree with that. I would agree. All of this talk's making me want to buy it. I want to see what it looks like.
So you can play it on Game Pass for free if you want to check it out.
True.
Because of the GPU apocalypse, I haven't tried it out yet, but I'm definitely going to fire it up.
Maybe we should jump in and report back. I'll see if...
Yeah, between now and next week's episode. All right, we'll give you our impressions next week on Palworld.
Yeah. I'll just see if I got Games Pass. I'll do it after the show. Do we want to... We're running out of time. Do you want to quickly go over some more game stuff?
Yeah, one more game thing. So this is just because it's a personal thing I think is really cool.
Go on.
Xbox had their like a developer direct presentation and they showed their game Indiana Jones and the Great Circle for the first time. This is developed by Machine Games, who made the Wolfenstein, most recent Wolfenstein games, which are awesome. And with Bethesda's Todd Howard, obviously the game director of Skyrim, Starfield, as the executive producer. It's like based on his idea. So it's like a first-person Indiana Jones game with like cinematics, third-person cinematics and stuff like that. Harrison Ford's likeness. It's set in between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade, timeline-wise. So it's a younger indie, stuff that you can't really do in the modern films. The full gameplay reveal trailer is about a few minutes long, 3 minutes long. It looks stunning.
It does look good.
I assume it's running on I assume it's running on the latest version of the id Tech engine because Machine Games use the id Tech, which is what runs Doom Eternal and stuff like that. They're always at the forefront of games. And this trailer is like running at 60 FPS as well. So like the game is like smooth. It's got first-person puzzling, and the combat is like mix of melee with like using the whip in first person. So it's not really a shooter because Indy's not he doesn't run around just shooting people. And, they, in the behind the scenes stuff, they said that there's a lot of puzzles. You don't have to approach, you don't like every situation isn't a case of just going in guns blazing or flying with like, you know, just punching everyone, whatever the case is. Like there's a lot of stealth, there's a lot of like using the environment, there's a lot of like disabling and disarming and using the whip. And I don't know, like it just looks nuts. Like it just looks like a really good sort of like cinematic single player game.
It does look good.
And it's like globe trotting, you know, like you got like the Himalayas, you've got like Egypt, Cairo, and you've got like jungle environments. And like the indie voice is actually really cool. It's Troy Baker who who actually voices, I think, Nathan Drake.
Oh, does he?
So this is, yeah.
Oh.
But Troy Baker, I think, or like, I might be wrong on that. Let me just look that up.
No, I'm just looking.
He does like so many voices in games.
I've heard of that name before. I'm looking at the gameplay right now. It actually looks pretty cool. Like you whip.
Oh yeah, like
you whip people and then you drag them real close to you, grab their legs, and yeah. No, that's
like he is. Yeah, he's Joel in Last of Us. That's
right.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's basically in. Like he's voiced Batman in video games. He's voiced.
He's got it.
He's basically his credits are as long. He's voiced so many like characters in games, but he's doing like an Indiana Jones impression in this one, so it kind of sounds like him and Indy. It's actually really cool. Like it sounds pretty good. But yeah, so like the reason why it stands out to me is that like this is like it's exclusive to Xbox and PC, right? This feels like a sort of like cinematic, you know, like action adventure game that Microsoft hasn't had for ages, right? I can't even think of the last time Microsoft had a game like this. Like, you know, Starfield was like an RPG, right? Forza's have been racing games. Halo's like a shooter. I mean, this is first person, but this is like a story-driven, globe-trotting, like spectacle, puzzles, this and that. This is like that sort of game that you would go for, I want to play that. And you know that you're just going to be playing it for that week and just have a good time with it sort of thing.
Yeah, this feels more like a PlayStation, The Last of Us,
God
of War kind of experience where it's a very like linear storyline.
Which is totally fine. And I
love those.
Like, yeah, and Indiana Jones is like, you know, one of my favorite.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for that. That's 2024. Okay. So coming out this year sometime, not sure of the exact date as of yet.
Yeah, it just says 2024. I'm guessing at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Microsoft showed like a few other games that they've showcased, including Obsidian's new RPG Avowed, which is fantasy. It looks pretty good. And they showed some like strategy game, but this was like stole the show for sure. Because this is cool because like we haven't seen anything of this game before. So they basically just came out with this like 3-minute trailer where it's like, you know, the game is in the final stages of development. So you can just tell that it's like, you know, it's super polished. And machine games have a good track record, and you just know tech-wise it's going to be super solid.
Oh, if it's built on
because
the id Tech engine.
Yeah, you know it's going to run smooth on all platforms. On Xbox and PC.
Yeah, it's butter.
Can't wait for it.
Let's just quickly do Starfield, the update, and then we can wrap up. So Starfield got its biggest update yet. I can't really speak to the contents of the update besides the visual improvements and in particular the lighting adjustments. Wow. Did you see these?
Yeah, I saw your post. Like because I posted about this update just as it went live, like on the Steam beta branch. And see, the thing is like Starfield, I think is a good game, but I think it needs to be overhauled in a few areas to be great.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like you know, like the way certain mechanics and systems work. So Bethesda said, like, you know, they're releasing every 6 weeks this year. They're going to substantial patches, and this has well over 100 fixes. So it is a big update. But like ahead of the update, and even in the update notes, they said like this update focuses on quality of life improvements. But there is like, and I went through the patch notes, but there's nothing that actually changes the game mechanics. You know what I mean? Or like actually makes what you would consider quality of life.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the UI now is cleaner, and it shows you way more information, and you can manage your inventory a lot easier. That's a quality of life update, right?
For sure.
So guessing that these visual improvements, they're considering quality, because this is the visual stuff is the only stuff from the patch that actually changes the game.
Yeah.
And like based on your post, like it is dramatically makes a lot of areas look way better.
Oh, honestly, it's like night and day. And when I was playing Starfield, I don't know, I just kind of fell out of it. But
Same.
after looking at these images of the before and after, and Reese, if you can put the before and then put the after on screen somewhere, some of the areas felt extremely sterile, and in the sense of like if you walked into a back room on an abandoned planet and there's this tiny little like POI, you go in there and it's, you know, there's like maybe 3 bad guys or something like that. They've got the electricity running like full bore. It's like white LED light and everything, and it doesn't fit the setting of this like you're a space explorer
walking into a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, or a hospital. That's what it felt like. Yeah. It felt like a lot of areas were just drowned in white ambient light. And what this update has done it's changed the light sources, at least according to, I'm not sure if this is exactly what has happened, but from the images and Redditors that are playing Starfield, this is what they think has happened. The light positions have been changed to individual lights. This is a quote from Great Horn. They really did go in and manually move light sources around. That's pretty nice. Savages doesn't feel like a hospital anymore. Is another Starfield.
Yeah, because that's on like the neon planet. So people are also saying that like, hey, it looks like Cyberpunk now, which makes sense because you don't want like it just looked out of place having like you said, like hospital lighting when something should be like dim or neon or like have or look more suit the location more, like you said, like if you're on like a planet and
if it's abandoned, the electricity shouldn't be working 100%. You know what I mean? Like it should be, you know, light should be flickering. It should feel more moody, and these changes really have improved at least the feel of the game. And to play devil's advocate, there are some players, and there's always going to be people that complain about whatever they can. Some players have said that they've gone overboard. Like officers say the last couple of images in my article here, it's like an office should feel sterile. It should feel like a hospital. It's I tell those people to shut up. Tell me that after photo doesn't look better.
Yeah.
Come on. It looks better.
It definitely looks better. Like I'm keen to jump back into Starfield, but there needs to be like substantial changes, like a patch that says like, oh hey, now you can ride a vehicle on a planetary surface, or now in this patch you can, when you break down items, it's going to be like Fallout where you actually get crafting materials. You can break down all that junk you find to get crafting mats, and now it's going to be so much easier to actually build. And now we're going to give you another reason to actually build. It's like this. Like there's stuff in the game that just seems like it's there just for the sake of being there without enough to actually make it.
My next question would be, okay, that's great that you've rolled out these changes and, you know, we can drive cars on the surfaces of planets and stuff like that. Why didn't you do that at launch? Why am we waiting for the rest of the game?
This is the world of game development.
I just find that cringe and gross. Like GTA 6 isn't going to come out, and then 6 weeks later, the lighting of the entire game is different.
It's like there's certain developers like Rockstar, and Nintendo is another. Nintendo won't release a Zelda that's going to be like, hey, a year later now you can do 5 more things and it's a notably better game. But like when it comes,
they release it when it's finished.
Cyberpunk. Like Cyberpunk 2077, right? It's like more relevant now than it was 3 years ago because it's a good game now.
Because it's fixed.
Or like it's a great game now. Like it was good back then if you had the right PC hardware, you know, it looked stunning and, you know, like kind of, it wasn't as buggy as the console, blah, blah, blah. But you fast forward 3 years and there's like way more content. The skills have been completely redesigned. The expansion is awesome. You can now like hop on a train and just view the city as you ride around. Like just little things and just like thousands and thousands of updates and fixes and new things that they've added to the game.
Yeah.
Like and the expectation now is that Starfield is going to be the same.
Hopefully. I just think it's poor.
But it's going to
poor
take them a
form.
while though. That's a problem.
Poor form. Yeah. That is about. Oh, hold on. I just want to make sure we didn't cover the Feelbelt, or the Seagate.
Should we close with this? Close with the Feelbelt.
We also have to talk about the world's largest hard drive.
Okay.
We'll just do this briefly. I know we're going over time. So Seagate has released the Axios X Mosaic 3 Plus. It is the new standard of 30 terabytes with 10 3 terabyte platters. It is enabling an impressive 1.742 terabytes per square inch. Features a 12 nanometer integrated controller, and I just want to get the best points for you here. TechRadar proposes an approximate cost of $15 per terabyte of storage, which would make the Axios X Mosaic 3 Plus a $450 hard drive. So if you want to store, oh man,
Every movie?
yeah, well, I was going to say, like, is it 30? It'd be like 300. How much?
Imagine putting this in a NAS.
Blu-ray is like what? Just over a
Yeah,
gig?
but you're talking about, like, let's just say, obviously when you compress a movie, like using like a codec like X265 or X264, right? You want a 4K movie, let's say 20 gigs per movie.
Yeah.
You got 30 terabytes. No, even less, like 10 gigs per movie. We got like 30 terabytes. You got thousands of super high quality.
So yes,
movies.
That is the new world's largest hard drive. Yeah,
I would like one.
I would like one just to have in my PC. Just so I can throw all the podcast footage on there. Okay, let's finish up with the what is it?
The Feelbelt.
What is it?
Have a look at this thing, right? It's called the Feelbelt. I think it was like crowdfunded or talked about ages ago, but it's now available for sale in the US and Europe. It's developed by a German company.
Right.
But basically it is a belt.
Okay.
With haptic feedback technology.
Oh.
So basically it connects via Bluetooth or wired to your audio device. So your phone, your MetaQuest, headphones, and it syncs up the frequencies using its own tech to, the entire frequency range to then, and this is quote, add a tactile layer to the audio experience, providing users with a sense of touch that complements the audio they hear. So, like, I don't know, like, this is like you look at the belt, right? So, like, the funny thing is about this is that they got, like, lifestyle shots, and it looks like Batman's tool belt.
It does. It does look like Batman's tool belt.
Would you, would you go out in public wearing this
Absolutely
thing? Absolutely not. And the thing is, and it's just around your waist, and what this thing is going to be doing is that, like, if you're listening to a track with, like, bass and high frequencies, it's going to be, like, like, just vibrating around you.
It's got actuators or something inside of it.
Haptic technology, basically like the DualSense controller on PS5.
Wow. Okay.
It's just like Rumble.
No, I would use this at home. I wouldn't take this into public.
Exactly. No.
God.
But they're saying, one of its main use cases is to, like, whack on your headphones as you go for a walk and then just have this.
What, you're sitting on the bus next to someone and you're listening to, I'm listening to, like, Black Skinhead by Kanye, and it's like, and then you can just hear the.
Yeah.
I would think the guy next to me has got a bomb.
Yeah, but like it looks silly. Like you just like
no,
you
have
to
wear
go
that
get
under
over the
your
hurdle
shirt. You don't wear it over your shirt. You're asked to get.
Well, all their lifestyle shots of them with. Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
asking to get beaten up. People will think that you like if you're vibrating next to someone and not responding because you have headphones on. People are going to think you're crazy.
Yeah, this sort of like technology is, I think, like it's kind of like maybe some people would like it, but I think it's a little bit silly. But do you remember like when Razer had those haptic feedback headphones?
Yeah, I've tested Corsair's version of them.
And yeah, like, where it just like vibrates and you just turn it off because you're like, this is just annoying after a point, right? This is like a similar sort of thing. It's like, but around your waist.
I like the idea of like what is it? like a vest or something like that.
As you say this, right? Because I'm a audio nerd that kind of loves like weird audio accessories like this. In my article, I link to the, it's from the 1990s. It's something called the Aura Interactor. It was developed for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive. And it was like basically a backpack that you wore. That you plugged in like the audio cables from your console and then to the thing, like as used as the intermediary, and it just would vibrate on your back as you're playing the game, and it was supposed to like immerse you in it. It was like one of those silly gadgets for like a Super Nintendo or a Mega Drive or Genesis that was just kind of like funny because it's just like you're putting this plastic backpack on that vibrates to the sound.
Dude, that looks like an IED. I'm looking at a photo of it
More
right
so than
now.
this belt, right?
It looks like an IED. I would, if I walked into your house and you had that hooked up to yourself, I would be like, I got to get out of here.
But you're like, I'll just take it off and say like,
but I suppose the more
don't mess with me or I'll press the button.
Yeah, I suppose the more modern version of that is that Razer cushion thing.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like they in like the.
Did we talk about that?
No, it was like a cushion in a chair.
Yeah, I'll link it just so you can have a look. Yeah, it's a full cushion job. Where is it?
Cushion job. But who's wanting all these vibrating accessories for like sound?
I don't know. But
do you know like one of the?
This is a cushion.
Absolute.
It makes you.
This whole section is turning into like weird audio accessories that vibrate. So the absolute one of the weirdest ones, I forgot to put in the article. So if you remember, there was a game on the Dreamcast and I think it came onto PS2 and then it came on PC and it's in VR. It's called Rez. And it's like a techno, you play the game to the music. It's like a, kind of like an arcade shooter. It's called Rez.
Yeah,
and,
I'm looking at
and you
it.
just shoot things basically in time with the music. In VR, it's awesome. And the music is great, right? And at the time, the developer was like, this is more than a game. It's all about synesthesia, which is when, like audio and visuals and other senses merge.
Yeah.
So like, where it's transcendent sort of experience. And it is like an awesome game. And the same developer made Tetris Effect, which is a cool, where game
like
with
Guitar
music
Hero.
and visuals. Yeah. But the music is like a key thing. So anyway, like they released like an accessory which looked like a sexual device because it plugged in to the console or the controller for Rez, and you sat on it, and it vibrated in time with the music.
Oh, is this it? Is it called the Trance Vibrator?
Yes. Even the name is sexual.
All right, well, that's all for this episode. I think we're going down a interesting rabbit hole.
Down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Now that looks funny. And this belt's weird.
Yeah. So there you have it.
Yes. Thank you very much for listening. Please go like, comment, and subscribe if you have made it this far. We'll be back next week with another jam-packed
GPU
week
heavy episode
of news.
This is the last one for a little while.
What was that? Sorry, Costa?
It'll be GPU heavy again because the 4080 Super will be next week.
Yep. And then after that, we'll give the listeners a break from GPU stuff.
GPUs?
Maybe
not.
GPUs and monitors, that's our stuff. Always keen to talk about it. Yes, thank you very much for listening. You've been listening to Jak and Kosta on the TT Show. You have anything?
We'll catch you guys next
anything to sign off with?
If you do, if you are interested in getting the vibrating belt for sound, let us know.
Please
we would want to review. If you get it, we will pay you for a review. A full review.
All right, thank you guys. See ya.